Procedurally generated, permanent death, roguelikes allow their unique mechanics to be incorporated into any genre, resulting in a sea of diverse games with infinite possibilities. And with new unique roguelikes being released every single day, I like to play and analyze the ones that may not have had the chance to shine yet. If that sounds interesting, welcome to the series where we learn what works, what doesn't, and why, all in search to find the next big roguelike. MegaBattle. This seems to be a deck building roguelike where you're controlling a big robot and you're fighting another big robot. Now, I've played obviously my fair share of deck building roguelikes. I even made a video essay on their design. And I'm usually an advocate for deck building games to try to have some kind of a unique spin, some kind of design that kind of takes it apart from Slay the Spire. Now, this one seems definitely different, just visually at least. It seems like you're controlling a lot of different parts of your robot and then you're just fighting another robot that also has these parts. I think you can like choose which parts you want to fight and all that kind of stuff. At first glance, I would say that this looks similar to a game called Griftlands, where it's like a one-on-one fight, but you're actually not fighting, you're having a conversation, which is a whole unique thing. But I don't think I see very often like deck building games where you're just fighting one character, 1v1 pretty much. I think that's what it's going for, so I'm curious. Now, this game is developed by a small indie team in Brazil. This is currently a demo. The demo is available on Steam if you want to go check it out for yourself. And the game should be coming out around May of this year. So if this looks interesting, definitely check out MegaBattle on Steam and wishlist it. As per usual, I'm going to be playing for a few hours on my end, and then I will give my overall thoughts later down in the video. So timestamps below if you want to skip ahead. All right, let's check out some MegaBattle. Okay, so I got the bit of a tutorial. We have an entire Slay the Spire map, which we'll talk about in a moment. And it took me a second to kind of adjust to how the gameplay works, but I think I finally got it. So basically, we have a bunch of different robot parts, and we can choose any of our cars to use that body part to then attack the opponent's specific body parts, which will then do damage. You need to go through all the armor before starting to actually deal damage to the opponent's health. But you can only attack one part at a time. So even if I bring down to 0 here, and then I can start dealing damage, I can't attack that again. So there's a lot. This is definitely one of the more intricate core gameplays from the start that I've seen in one of those deck building games on the series. So it's quite exciting. I just did one turn right now, so I'm only getting started. But let's take a look here. Deal 20 damage and apply 20 burn on a damage part. Okay, so the opponent is going to attack using their left arm on my left arm. So if I guard my left arm, that's my right arm. I understand why that's my right arm, but it's visually, it's on, I get it, it's left to the right. Okay, got it. So let's do left arm right here, protect. This deals more damage. Deal 20 and apply 20 burn on the damage part. I'm just gonna destroy this arm right here, right? So I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna attack this part, which will deal a lot of damage. This is gonna get burned. Boom! You destroy an enemy part. Not only can it not attack, it can't be used either. Attack parts with 0 defense until you reduce your opponent's. Yeah, okay, got it. So it's also gonna take damage from the burn that I applied, I think. Okay, and then I'm gonna strike. If I do this, it's gonna take some damage, I think. Yeah, their arms deal more damage unless I deal damage to them. Okay, so now we get to see their turn. So you attack my part here, but it's blocked, so no biggie. Now, is that gonna is the fire gonna go through? No, it doesn't go through. Got it. Okay, what are they playing? Just 2 attacks. So using their left arm, they're going to attack my right arm and my head. So my right arm is actually quite weak, so I'm gonna put some integrity on it. All right, let's use my left arm to once again attack their right arm here. Apply burn. Okay, so I can't use the same part twice. I wasn't sure about that. Oh wait, I forgot. If I use my chest piece, I apply burn. I totally forgot that. Let's do... Hey, what is it gonna use? This part and this part. Okay, got it. This. There you go. Okay. So I shouldn't actually take damage here. Like full-on damage. There's a lot of things to think about. I'm liking this so far. This is a very interesting gameplay loop. I'm curious how different the run is going to feel throughout, and like how my deck's gonna change throughout as well. This is unblockable damage, which means I can go past it even if it's weak. So if I do something like, oops, that was the wrong move. Oopsies. It's okay. So I do this, and now it's unblocked, but I can now use this to still go through it. And there you go. Okay, let's end our turn. So that means we didn't lose any health. And they're gonna die, right? Because they're burning. And burns at the end of their turn, right? Bonk! Nice! Alright, we got our first enemy down. Victory! Thank you. Okay, so we get to choose card rewards. Each renown point by winning battles and completing events. When you reach a new renown tier, you will receive a reward. Okay, let's take a look at these cards, shall we? Area. Player part recovers target part receives full effect while neighbor parts only receive half. Oh, that's interesting. So it's a big defense. We got a regeneration. So the defensive stuff. Player part recovers for each part that has fire. Armor parts can't go beyond their max, right? I don't know. Let's do a circuit regeneration. Okay. Okay, so here's our Slate of Spire map, by the way. It's pretty impressive. Let's go to an event. Hi there, buddy. Between stops, you see a lone technist fiddling with some loose machinery. He seems very experienced in what he does, but not well financially. You speak to him for a minute or two before he asks if there is any service you wish from him that he will do for free. Definitely remove a card. Removing cards early is extremely powerful. I have a lot of offensive things. The problem is that the strikes is the only thing that costs 1. It's a bit of an odd starting deck because you have a lot of high cost cards. I guess the idea is I get a strike, a guard, and one of the 2 cost attacks, so let's do that. All right, let's do our next fight. Okay, so the first thing I should probably do is always check the body parts to see if there's anything unique. The only thing I'm seeing is nothing unique, but pretty high damage. They're going to be doing target player parts gain and 10 burn if this card is deleted. Okay. Head is going to get attacked by 50, which is central amount. Okay, so that's why the guards are pretty useful, because you don't want to recover right now because I already have max, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So now I'm defending for 40. So the guards are really decent. So I'm going to take 10 damage, which is totally fine. Let's place some burn on... I probably want to get rid of the hands. So now that is burning. Do I care about losing the draw? Oh, I should have attacked it there. I didn't fully realize that. Okay, so they're probably now going to use that arm to attack something. My head. Okay. It's going to be a lot of damage. 60 is pretty rough. I'm going to take 30. Let's just do it again. Take it slow. What is he doing? His right arm. So now this is going to be more powerful next turn. So what I'm going to do... I'm going to use my middle part here because, again, it comes with the effect of burning itself. And boom! Wait. I could have done that on this part too. There's so many angles to this. This is cool. This is really cool. I is going to want to use that next turn, but they're not going to be able to use it, correct? What happened? Did I win? Wait, really? I didn't realize I did that much damage. Okay, cool. Fun. So, more defense. Fear. Recover equal to your... Oh, that's pretty cool. We do have a lot of fierce stuff, so we're trying to go for fierce and burn, which, again, that's all we started with anyway, so that makes sense. Okay, let's check out the repair into another event, to another repair, into an actual elite fight. That sounds fun. Because it also says that we can upgrade. I'm kind of curious about the upgrade aspect. Wait, did I misunderstand how this worked? Oh, shoot. I thought you could actually upgrade stuff. Like in an actual campfire. Oh, that's sad. Did I misunderstand how that worked? Upgrade and fix. So I got scammed. Oh, renown, congratulations, you've reached renown level 2. Now you collect your reward. It's a 0 cost. It's kind of like a passive. Once per turn, when you apply fierce to a part, draw a card. Okay, insanely powerful, so let's do that. You know, I'm actually gonna probably switch it up with fierce, right? No, I'm still going for some burn stuff. I think burn is better because it actually stacks up. Never mind. All right, let's check out this elite. Hello, you are a burn guy. Once per turn, when this part owner applies burn, a random damage part recovers health. That's pretty good. What about you? Once per turn, when its owner burns, increase a random parts by 20. These are some spooky things. All right, let's apply burn to... Actually, their body parts are pretty strong, huh? Let's apply it to... One gives them damage. So they're gonna attack my head for quite a bit. Oh man, they're doing a lot of damage actually, huh? My chest should be okay. Let's protect our head. Do that. Deal damage, overheat, double the damage dealt. Okay, we're definitely blocking this. It blocked. Wait, why didn't that work? I blocked it. What? God, 100 damage after that. I'm still gonna take some damage here. I think, right? Yeah, because they're gonna heal and then they're gonna deal damage. Oh, but not by a lot though. Yeah, you can heal this guy. I don't care. Boom. Nice. Okay, so we're okay actually. Bye bye. Okay, so they're gonna attack my chest again. So let's do block and some armor, and that should be it. Good luck. A boom. Nice. Didn't take any damage. Whee! Let's see what we get for killing an elite. Probably like better rewards. Right to fire. Delete a random card in your hand. Recharge 1 and increase your parts by 10. Let's go. Once per turn, when you apply heat to a part, draw a card and recharge 1. That's also really strong. It costs a lot, but that's really good with what we're going for. Cool. Ooh, passive. Oh, no. Oh, that's how it works. Oh, that's so cool. So instead of a straight up passive ability, you just gain new parts. Let's just get more armor, I guess, right? On our legs. Sure. All right, let's equip our new leggings. It's not as much as I thought it was gonna be, but oh, but I look cool though. I like that you changed colors. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna continue playing on my end, and I will circle back with my overall thoughts in just a moment. Okay, so we ended up finishing that run. I actually beat the final boss of the demo, which was fun. I started a new run to try to get another feel of the different kind of replayability, at least currently, and yeah, I've got a good sense of how this game is going to end up being, so let's just jump into it. So the gameplay is really unique. Once again, I always say, you know, deck building games should have a little twist, and generally, I think personally, a lot of times, and this one has a lot of different things put into play. On the upside, there's a lot of unique mechanics that the player needs to kind of learn and adjust to, and they can do some pretty cool things. The fact that each of your cards can be attributed to any body part, which may have some of their own synergies with the effects that some body parts can have, and then you can send it to an enemy specific body parts, mean that there's, instead of just playing like a strike, you have to play a strike, choose a body part, and then choose another body part. That's like a 3-step process, which all of these extra steps is going to allow more synergies and more strategy as to, you know, what you should be using against what, which is really cool. And ultimately, it's actually not as overwhelming as I thought it would be upon actually realizing, you know, the 3-step process. So that's quite nice. The card design is pretty cool. You've got your basics, you've got your thorns, you've got your armor, you've got you know, fire, you've got attacks, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, nothing groundbreaking in terms of some of the mechanics within the cards themselves, but I think they're quite fitting and they're enjoyable. One thing that I've realized is that you start with 4 energy, but a lot of cards cost 2. Almost every card I found in rewards cost 2, which is a bit odd to me because I understand the extra mana, therefore they can put more cost, but the fact that everything really costs 2 made it feel like you could only play 1 of the 2 costs and then 2 of your basic 1 cost attacks all the time, which didn't give me as much freedom compared to Slay the Spire. And again, I'm going to compare this to Slay the Spire because that's the basic thing to do. I think Slay the Spire has a lot more cards that you can play in a turn, while here way less, which again, that's a choice. Clearly, you're not supposed to be playing a lot of cards in this particular game, at least that's how it feels like. Even if I had a build that actually somehow got a bunch of energy and a bunch of card draw, which seemed a little overpowered. The outside of combat stuff, it's very Slay the Spire. You know, you get your map, you choose, you got your resting point, you got your shops, you got your elites, you got your events, you got your normal battles. I'm not against it, you know. I think deck building games that use a lot of Slay the Spire concepts, I think the gameplay is important to be different, but yeah, out of combat, I don't think it's an issue. I think Slay the Spire did it really well, and I think it's easy to just replicate it without it feeling unique or just like boring, because all these events, all these shops are unique to the game, even if the path itself and the mapping itself is the same. So yeah, that's fine with me. There seems to be more paths to choose from the bottom, and the map seems pretty big. This definitely feels like it's definitely slower pace than a game like Slay or Spire, especially because of the gameplay being slower with the 3-step, process of using a card. Everything's going to be slower, and overall, this game has a system where all your body parts already have armor that you have to go through in order to deal damage. So everything already has defense, and you have a 3-step process. So combats are much slower, which is a pro and a con, obviously. On one end, that's just going to be more gameplay. You spend more time thinking and strategizing. On the other, the first floor took me a while. I was obviously getting started and getting the gist of it, but I have a feeling that even if I was comfortable, it would be definitely a deck building game that would be on the slower side compared to most of them. So that's something to keep in mind, at least currently. Other aspects of the roguelike elements, there are no relics. So this is another pro and con that I see, where instead of having relics or artifacts, it's your body parts that you can replace, and each of the body parts are going to have unique effects. I mean, most of them that you're going to find are going to have unique effects. Those are going to be your passive kind of relics and stuff. That's really cool. I love the fact that you're going to be constantly like switching around your body parts. That's cool. On the other hand, it does limit, obviously, the amount of stuff that you can have. And in a game like currently, I just did the first floor. Now, I don't know if they're planning on just having only one floor runs, which would be surprising, but I do feel like the further along I would go, the more and more annoying having those slots would be, considering that by the end of that one floor, I already felt like I was limited to what I could equip because I already had all the parts that I was happy with, and so beating an elite didn't really reward me with much. This is an quote-unquote issue that I've been finding in a lot of games recently that I personally have, which is that they limit the amount of power level that a player can have, and I kind of wish that they would make the power level higher, but obviously have enemies be stronger, but not limit the player to only having these 5 slots to play around with, because that's all you have pretty much. And without the additions of relics or artifacts, you can pretty much, it's as if only having 5 artifact slots, but sometimes the one that you really want is already on a piece that you already have and that you really like, so you're not even going to be able to use it. So it's a cool concept, but it does limit a lot of player freedom. So I kind of wish that there was another way, maybe transferring like an effect from like a body piece to something else through like some kind of mechanic, or just having actual artifacts, relics, or even, yeah, I mean, like transferring like a body parts effect into a relic, something like that. I'm scared that the limitation is going to feel a little too frustrating. But being able to change your body parts is a really cool concept, one that I don't really see very often in these kind of games. Let's talk about the enemies. So each enemy is another robot. This is definitely one of those like symmetrical games where you're fighting theoretically what you could have yourself. You're always fighting another robot that seems to have the same rules as you. They have their own body parts and their old cards, and you're just kind of fighting. This obviously means that this could have a multiplayer aspect, which I think would be awesome. Now, I've talked about this fairly recently about a few games that have this kind of system, and I understand that doing multiplayer is not an easy thing to do. Again, I don't know what's in the plans for release and everything, but if this game could have kind of like the He Is Coming multiplayer aspect where you're fighting other people's builds without it being necessarily like a straight up online multiplayer PvP game, that could be really cool. I always think of these kind of things when I'm realizing that all I'm fighting are just the same robots as me. In any case, that's just a little element that I could see this game having. The robots, yeah, they're cool. Obviously, when you start your fight, you have to look at all the different body parts and all the cars that they're being using. So there's a lot to look at when you start a battle. And once you get an idea of what kind of build they're going to go for, you can start strategizing as how you want to approach the robot, which is really fun. Now, this visually is going to mean that you're going to always be fighting another robot, and that's fine. Obviously, that's the point of the game, right? I kind of wish that the boss was something bigger or like more visual, because visually elites, bosses, and normal enemies look exactly the same. I mean, they all have their own different body parts, but I don't see a differentiation, and I don't even know why an elite is an elite versus not, right? So I kind of wish there was a way to just visually have more representation to the boss and to the elite versus the normal enemies. That's a small thing, obviously. It felt like, obviously, some enemies were going to be much stronger than others to my own build, depending on what I was playing. Yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, so that's my overall first impressions. Now I want to talk about more specific notes that I wrote down. Overall, I think the game could have slightly better quality of life things. Again, this is a demo, so to be expected this is going to be improved, but I still think it's worth mentioning. Loading screens are very slow. One aspect that is like very slow is the fact that your body parts is in its own screen, and it's not just a window that pops up over whatever you're doing, which means that it has to load in and load out. And that was so slow that sometimes I didn't even bother looking if what I wanted was going to synergize, because I knew it was going to take a while. And not only that, but when you're offered a new body part, you can't even compare to what you have. Now, if you hover it, I think it will just show you the different stats, but I don't think it immediately shows you what is your body part that you're planning on being replaced. So I just wish that was a little easier. I wish it was just a window instead of that whole separate screen. So hopefully that was going to be, you know, put into place for a full release. Other quality of life stuff, one I think is pretty important, is you can see like the enemies in tents, and it says, you know, like the head piece of the enemy is going to attack your left arm piece. I really wished it was just when you hover over that, it just shows you an arrow as to what they're using, because I have to actually look at then their headpiece, and then I have to look at which of my arms is left, because it's actually quite confusing, because on the screen the right arm is the left arm naturally because they're positioned like this, but it's still, I have to wrap my head around it. And when you're reading so many things, I don't want to spend that like 1 second thinking about which arm is which. So I kind of wish that when you would hover over the intentions of the enemy, it would immediately give you an arrow, a red arrow showing you what it's going to do. Or if you hover over the enemy body parts, that it would also do the same thing. It would show you, when you hover over the helm, that it would show you that the helm is planning on doing this. That kind of quality of life would be great. Other quality of life, like I feel like it wasn't very visual when I was out of energy and I couldn't use certain cards. And with the amount of information presented on the screen, which is totally understandable, quality of life I think is quite important. Okay, now I want to talk about more of the gameplay. With how extensive and unique and fairly complex the gameplay is for a deck building game, I think it's really cool what they have going for. I'm a little bit worried about certain aspects of it, just because I know that the more you put in mechanics and like unique like 3-step things and like a lot to do during your turn, the harder it is to balance, and the more you're gonna potentially get into just having things be a little too powerful. It felt like what I was going for was extremely powerful, because I understand how to scale certain builds, but I could see that other builds didn't really have much of a scaling potential in comparison, at least from my little bit that I saw. So I'm hoping the balance is going to be okay. One thing I've realized that I find a little odd is the whole defense mechanic. Now, differently than Slay the Spire, you don't just give yourself block at all times. Instead, all your body parts are going to have a, you know, an armor amount. I forgot how they're actually called. So for like 50, 60s, 80, that always starts every single battle. And then when that piece takes damage, you can replenish that quote-unquote yellow armor with cards. That's like the main way to do defense, which means your first turn, all these cards are useless. There are some cards, there's a starting class that gives you the potential of, like, if you go over the armor amount, it becomes like a different kind of armor, but that's a very specific card. If you don't have the starting class, that means that any card you draw that's defensive will most likely be completely useless at the beginning. And then moving forward, whatever body part took damage, you're just going to be focusing on that part, and there's not that much to do with that gameplay-wise. You just focus on whatever is being taken damage, and you just defend it. Yeah, it's not super complex, which is not supposed to be, I guess, in that regard, but I wish it was a little bit more. I wish that armor didn't feel completely useless on the first turn, that there was more you could do, and that it wasn't always going to be the same thing where once the AI, which I think is pretty smart, the AI did a pretty good job, once they realize that one of your body parts is weak, they're going to focus that, so you're just going to put all of your armor on that one piece. And yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely one of those games where we need more hours to really get a full understanding of in-depth of the gameplay and how interesting it's going to be in the long run. I think it is very interesting, but I'm curious how it's going to feel if I were to play like 5 to 10 runs, right? Because the game has a lot of rules that kind of stop the player from doing some crazy things, right? You can only use one body part per turn. You can only focus on one enemy body parts per turn. Every time that you focus one body part on an enemy, the enemy will automatically target that for defense, which is quite smart on the AI. But again, everything is always trying to stop you from being overpowered, if that makes sense. Even though I did say that you can be overpowered I mean, I found a crazy build on my first run, but it wasn't as satisfying in terms of like, oh, I can't just use always my same body part to attack the same body part, which obviously that's the point of the game. It doesn't want you to do that, right? Because that would be too powerful, and I totally get it. But I always felt like the game was just stopping me from doing an extra really cool thing here and there. So it's hard to explain, and ultimately it's not necessarily a bad thing because that's part of its core. And I think that's a really cool concept. I'm just kind of curious how it's going to be with more content, more balance, more quality of life. I can see a world that in its current state, if things were a little more polished, then I think this could be really fun. A very unique, fun, strategic deck building game with an interesting concept. So yeah, that's, I mean, I kind of already summarized it, but overall, MegaBattle. A really cool idea. I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing how this game is going to go upon release, because I play a lot of these games and this is one of the more unique ones. I do think it has a few quality of life things, including some translation issues. Tutorial is nice. I appreciate that they put a lot of effort making sure that people don't get confused, but it's almost getting to the point, which is a very rare thing, where there were too many windows for very basic things. Like you get a card reward and then it says, here's your card reward. You can select this and then you can press this to add it to your deck. It will be added to your deck. I'm like, I get it. Obviously, that's not that much of a problem, but it felt like a little bit excessive. I'm sure even for someone who's not, I mean, obviously I play these games a lot, so that makes sense to me, but even so, I think I'm a little tweaked it a little too much. But if polished again, and with more classes you can start with, which I think I was able to see that's going to be the case. Potentially more content outside of just what they already have, but some new, you know, like having your own relics, having potentially different kind of robots you have to fight, or different encounters that are not necessarily just a symmetrical thing or unique events in that regard. I think that'd be cool, but as it stands, this is looking very promising. Thank you so much for sending us MegaBattle and using the skip the line option. Using this option really supports the channel. We really appreciate it. Allows me to continue doing what I do and playing all of these awesome games. So thank you. If you're interested in sending us your demo or just your roguelike games, feel free to check out the form in the description below for a chance to being featured on the next episode of the series. And if you want to watch me play these games more than just what we just showed, but live, I stream these almost every week, so make sure to subscribe and follow if you want to catch me live. And yeah, that's about it.